omega, and theta. Okay? So, we will review, you have to reread or read what is big O, big omega, and theta notation. So, ang tawagan na niya is big notation. So, it would be big O, like that. And then, big omega. So, what would be the condition in big O? So, big O, your T of n, remember your T of n in the first analysis of algorithm na topic. So that's how we computed based on the code. So the T of n is a big O of f of n, no? If there are positive, okay, if there are positive constant C and n sub 0 such that, okay, T of n is less than or equals to the C of f of n. So what do you mean by that? So it means that you have to, when we are given, let's say, nato T of n, no? Katong, for example, 4n plus 3, we will try to prove that one if T of n is big O or whatever notation it might be. So that is for the definition of big O. Okay, that is the definition of big O. And how about big omega? So in big omega, ay wala pa din ninahumano. T of n is less than C of f of n. For all n is greater than or equals to n sub 0. So kung mo tanahan, it would be greater than o less than. So, unsa kay but pasabutan niya? So, it would be lower bound to upper bound. Or gikan sa gamma, gikan ang dapat iyang value must be less than, the T of n must be less than the C of f of n. So, for all n is greater than n sub 0. That's the big O. How about big omega? So, for big omega, big omega. So, big omega, the symbol of omega is, no? That's omega. Doon siya naman sa kung drawing. So, T of n is big omega of G of n if there are positive, no? If there are positive, okay, positive constant, no? Positive constant C and n sub 0 such that your T of n is greater than or equals to the C of f of n. For all n is less than or equals to n sub 0. So, it would be the opposite side for the big O. Mao na si big omega. Okay, again, atong tan-awon, si big O is, the T of n is big O of f of n if there are positive constants C and n sub 0 such that T of n is less than or equals to C of f of n. So, we will try to prove prove that later on. Okay, we will try to prove that on that particular definition of big O. And likewise in big omega. So how about in big theta? So number 3, big theta. So I think you know the symbol for theta, no, anak? Unay theta. Theta. Anyway, so the T of n there, the T of n, ma-determine mo siya nga big O siya, big theta siya if it is big O of h of n and big omega of h of n. So in other words, makaingon ka big theta na siya kung ma-prove na nimo kana nga T of n kana big omega na siya og big O. Okay? So kana mo na makaingon ka ay big theta na siya once silang duha. If ever miss, isa lang siya like big O lang siya. Di siya big omega. Therefore dili siya big theta. Okay? Same with big omega siya pero di siya big O. Therefore it's not big theta. So in that case, dapat siya kana makaingon ra ka kung big omega siya, big O o big omega ang duha. Nasabtan siya. Sige, pwede nyo i-screenshot ang iyahang definition sa big O. Anyway, it would be in the recorded video man sad, no? Ako raman i-upload. So, you can review this one. So, let's have our example. Example ta ha para how to prove whether it is big O, big omega, and big theta. So, since this is part of your analysis of algorithm, so we will have to work on this, no? So, example, prove that your T of n, sample lang na to ha, is equals to 4n plus 3. Remember mo ano ang given? So, we will try to prove that 4n plus 3 is big O. Big O sa ta. Big O ang atong i-prove. So, O ni siya nga example. So, show that your T of n, which is equals to 4n plus 3, is big O of n. Okay. So, let's try to prove your T of n is big O of n. So, again, it would be, in shortcut, you will say T of n is big O of n. And your T of n is 4n plus 3. Now, in that case, we will have to do it by definition based on the definition for big O. So, you will say by definition, no? So, you will have it, your T of n is less than or equals to C of n. I think you remember based on that, dara si big O. So, it would be T of n is less than or equals to the C of f of n. And then we will try to look for a constant value C when your n sub 0 is any value, or shall we say, we may start with 1, no? In that case. So, let's continue. Just tell me lang ha if ever dili na mo kasabot sa discussion. So, in that case, we may replace your T of n, which is 4n plus 3, is less than or equals to the C of n. So, what you're going to do? Okay, in this case, we will do, we will put there, you will divide I will do it step by step ha, para inyohang masabtan. Divide both sides by n. So how are we going to do this? So it would be 4n plus 3 less than or equals to the c of c of n. Then you will divide it by both by n. Kana. Divide na nimog n. So 4n divided by n, unsa mitabo? 4. Plus, 3 divided by n, it would be 3 over n. Okay? Then, it would be less than or equals to c of n, so it would be c. Na-cancel mo ng n. Okay? Nakasunod ra. So again, by definition, we will make sure that we have to divide the both sides by n. If ever miss, it would be n squared, it would be another story. So it would depend on this one, kani. So we will prove big O of n paman siya. So we'll try to have this one, whether it is big O, no? So let's see. So if your n sub 0 is equals to 1, then what is your c? Sige daw, what's the answer? What's the answer? If your n sub 0 is equals to 4, it would be what?
7, miss.
7. Tama. Diba? It would be 4 plus 3 over 1. So 3 divided by 1, 3 raman gapon. So 4 plus 3. Your c is equals to 7. Nasabtan siya. Nakasabot ra. Okay. So, in this case, to explain further, dapat, when your n sub 0, as your n increases, the value of n sub 0 or the value of n increases, dapat ang value ni c mo decrease. Okay? Pero dili lang nato i-show, tan-aw lang nato, we will try to look it, no? Kung panaglitan, si n sub 0 equals 2, what is the value of your c? What is the value of your C? Sige, compute.
3.5, miss.
Ha? I-type lang para maklaro ang value. What is the value? 3.5. How about others? 5.5.
5.5.
How about others?
5.5, miss.
5.5. Okay, 5.5. Okay. So, as you can see, your C is 5.5. So, in other words, tanawa ha, as the value of n increases, the value of C decreases. That is big O. So, you could say, therefore, or this is the symbol of therefore, no? Therefore, your T of n is big O of n. Or you will say 4n, 4n there. 4n plus 3 is big O of n. Okay, nasabtan siya. Balik ko na to ha. Bago pa man siya. So, in that case, kung again, balik ko na ko, based on the definition, dara, no? We can find the constant c and n is 0 such that t of n is less than or equals to c of n, f of n. For all n is greater than or equals to n sub 0. So, kung ano kay, ato na lang inanion. Pagsabot in layman's term. Si big O, gikan sa dako, padung sa gamay. Mauna si big O. Ang value ni C ni big O, kay gikan sa dako, padung sa gamay. As the value of n increases, the value of c decreases. Ato isalat ha. The value of n increases. The value of c decreases. Okay? So, that is big O. Question so far? Any question? So, the final say is kaniha, therefore, your T of n is big O of n. Since we proved that 4n plus 3 is big O of n. Okay. Walay clarifications? Okay, let's proceed with another. And then let's see later on to have the big omega. And then, para dito ma-struck kayo ani nga topic, no? So, sige. For big omega, so again, let's try to prove that T of n is big omega of n. So, unsa kito tong T of n? 4n, ang given 4n plus 3, is it big omega of n? So again, by definition, ato na lang diretso ha, by definition, unsa kitong definition sa big omega? It would be the reverse of big O. So your T of n is greater than or equals to C of n. Okay? Again, we will divide it by the T of n. Ito na isot. 4n plus 3 is greater than or equals to the C of n. Or then we will divide both by n. So, kung si big omega ay si big O gikan sa dako padong sa gamay, unsa man di ay si big omega. Okay? So you divide both of this particular equation or given to n. So again, it will happen like this, no? So 4 plus 3 over n. And then greater than or equals to c. Now, if your n sub 0 is equals to 1, what is your c? Hi. What is your C?
7 gyapon, miss.
7 miss.
7.
Ha? Okay, mao na ni siya karon. It would be the opposite way. So, it would be the answer is 4. Kana lang siya imuhang tan-awon. Okay? So 4. And then okay, mga tanan mo, miss nga naman nga dili man nimo siya i-perform like sa big omega, sa big O. Again, this is the opposite one. So based on the definition of big omega, no? If there are positive constants C such that T of n is greater than the C of f of n. So unsa ay bot pasabot-ana niya atong balihon, no? So kung sa big O is the value of n increases, the value of C decreases. Here, as the value of n increases, the value of C mo increase po. No? Example. Miss, if we will put there n of 0 equals 2. So that's the time you will increase the value. You will add this one. Itiman ilang na ha later. Ngano ka, no? Ato nang magbuhat ko og negative na value nga na kani siya kani. Instead of positive, ako ay negative para masabtan further. So, for the meantime, tanawa lang sa ni siya directly C4. No? C4. So, this is lower limit, no? Lower limit going to pataas. Ang isa kay upper padung sa ubos. Pero kung imong tanawon, ang binisaya in layman's term, gikan sa gamay padung sa dako. And then the value of n increases, the value of c mo increase pod. Diba? Kung mo n sub 0 ka equals 2, mo increase ang value ni c. Mahimo siyang sa tingin 5.5. So kung moingon po ka n sub 0 equals 3, 5 na sad siya. So may increase siya. Okay? And so on and so forth. Okay na? Nasabta na to. So kung from this example, we could say, sige, therefore, T of n is equals to big omega of n. Which is, therefore also, your T of n is equals to big theta of n. Ano man, you prove man nga big omega siya o big O. Okay? So, sige. Let's have one more example and then let's have your another example nga na siya negative. No? So, sige. Tanaw na to ha. I will do the other way around of the given. So, we will prove, ako na lang inon ha, prove that T of n is big theta of n squared. Ako lang ikuan ha. So, n squared na siya, dili na siya n. N squared na siya. Now, for example, you have there, your given, your T of n is 4n plus 3 is big. Unsan ganito ma-prove si tita nga theta siya? You will prove it big O of n first. So, ang given kay n squared man siya. So, we will prove 4n plus 3 is big O of n squared. So, again, atong tanawon siya kung big omega ba siya first. So, the same, we will prove it. Prove that, unsa to katong ganina. So, ato na lang isulat diretso ha, by definition, our T of n is, unsa man tong big O, less than or equals to C of n. Pero this time, it would be squared. Okay, we will try to look for big theta of n squared. So first, we will prove the big O of n squared. So, but we will put there, what is our T of n? Ano sa itong T of n? 4n plus 3 less than or equals to C of n squared. Okay? So, if we will divide it by both by n squared, so atong iklaro ha, butangan ako diri n squared sa ubos. Instead of katong iana nako siya. So, unsa may mahitabo ani? It would be, unsa? Sige, kamo daw. Sa may mahitabo? 4 over?
4 over n.
Correct. Plus, sunod?
3 over n squared.
3 over n squared. Less than or equals to? Equals to?
C, miss.
C.
Okay. Correct. So now, in that case, if your n sub 0 is equals to 1, what is your C? What's the value of your C?
7, miss.
Correct, 7. Okay? So, before going into, let's try to increase the value of n sub 0. N to 2. Okay, what is the next value of C? What's the next value of C? Nagdekadako, nagkagamay.
Nagkagamay.
Yes, nagkagamay. Pila next value ni C, Dolera?
2.75, Miss.
Okay. How about others? How about others? Hi. How about others? Ito ningon kun pila mi ka.
Same niya ako, Miss.
Ah,
Decrease
same.
siya.
Oh, so ni decrease. So in that case, you will say, therefore, T of n, which is equals to, ato lang isot, 4n plus 3 is the big O of n squared. So, mo to kung giingon ha, tanawan ninyo. Si n diri kay, ano iyang power? 1. Diri kay 2. No? Kani nga n kay 1. Diri kay 2. Okay? Now, in that case, kung si n dinhi, di ba, gamay ang value ni n, compare ani. So, mahimo, mo na imo sa isang hint na big O siya. Tanaw ni nimo. Basta dako gani ang gipangita dere kay mag-anam siya og ka gamay. Okay? That's the other hint for big O based on the definition. Unsa to? For all n, dara, balik ko na ko. For all n is greater than n sub 0. So, in other words, kung pananglitan imong n sa T of n kay gamay, no? Muna less than T of n, less than or equals to C of f of n. So, big O na siya. Okay? Let's try to prove kato nga given kung big omega ba siya. Tanawa. Atong balikon, ano sa to siya? 4n plus 3 is big omega of n squared. So again, by definition, so it would be T of n is greater than C of n squared. Okay, mao man atong gipangita, no? Okay. So we will put there, to 4n plus 3 is greater than or equals to C of n squared. Now, we will put, again, divide it by n squared. So, therefore, balik ra siya, no? It would be 4 over n plus 3 over n squared is greater than or equals to C of n. Ay, C na lang, rather. If your n sub 0 is equals to 1, what is your C?
4, Miss.
4.
4, Miss.
It would be a question mark. Or in other words, you cannot find the constant C. Why? Diba? If you will, mingon ka 4, when you increase n is equals to 1, when increase ka anig 2, diba mo gamay siya? Tama? From, pila to ganina yung giingon? Sige daw, butangi daw kung 2 siya, pila? Imbis magkadako, asa si Padong? Padong?
Gamay.
Gamay.
Ubos.
Unya unsa o? Unsa may ang definition? Gikan sa gamay padong sa dako. Okay, nasabtan ra ninyo siya. So therefore, your T of n is not omega of n squared.
Omega, thank you.
Okay, nasabtan ninyo siya.
So, di siya sa theta mismo. Okay, mo siya tunga.
Ay, tama. Dili siya Theta Ivan. Kay dili man
Basta
siya
walay.
Omega. Ha?
Excuse me, miss. Basta walay si diretso na siya nga
Oh, pwede
dili.
kami na it is impossible. It is impossible. Butangin lang, it is impossible to find constant C. Ana lang. And then, mayon naka, therefore, your T of n is not big omega of n squared. And therefore also, kaya nga itong ipangita, theta man, so your T of n is not big theta of n squared. Okay? Pangutana lang yun. Basin malapas-lapas dito sa itong discussion, no? Kay murag need gimangod siya kay tungod sa kuan ba. Wala man mo klase after 12, no? Kay ato man ang kuan. Ato man ang lecture yun unta, gibalira man ni nato. Okay na? What if? Nasa ng what if, no? What if? What if miss? What if miss? Sige. Ato sang hatag sa kog na ay may negative, no? Para makakuan mo ba? Ang tagan og negative. Kana kay positive man na siya. Example. Ato na lang i-prove in theta para maka-solve ta both omega o theta. So, sige. Your T of n is equals to 5n squared minus 3n is big theta of n squared. Sige daw, kamo day solve. Yeah. Then give me your answer afterwards. I'll give you 3 minutes to solve for both. Ay na lang kayo itong i-formalize first. Just that lang na part. Today, welcome ang taga-UC Banilad, no? Si Auntie Porta o si Humawan. So, bago pa lang sila nga gipaad ni Miss Mero, kagabi pa lang sa nato orasa niya. Si Humawan kay Kuan. Miguel. Naa si Miguel? Hay po na. Si Miguel? Mauday na ay Miguel. So, in other words, tulo day mo kabuok. Tulo mo kabuok Humawan? Okay. Tulo day mo kabuok. Wala pa si Miguel na add sa Kuan. Sa LMS. Isa man sa ni si Jibus Cry. Kinsa ni si Jibus Cry? Kinsa ni? Jibus Christ? Kinsa na? Paila, oy, kinsa na siya? Left man siya. Kuyuwan ko da. Bitaw, so tulo mo kabuok sa Banilad, si Antiporta, si Humawan, o si Miguel. So sila na ang natipo sa inyo. Other than sa gikan sa LM nga DSTRUCT. Okay. So sige. Nanay answer, wala pa di ay. 42, 11:42. So in Wednesday, we will have a quiz. No? Offline quiz, pero it would be limited to 1 hour. Nara ko'y time nga ibutang dito sa LMS, what time ninyo siya dapat mahuman. And it would kani siya included na sa inyong quiz. Ilay answer, ilay C. I-type lang if ever wala mo'y mic, no? I-type lang if ever. Pwede na po ninyo i-istorya. Sige, pila answer. Anybody? Nobody? Joke lang. Anybody? I know you solved that in your, Tumarang magpa-kuan bitaw ko niyo og papel o ballpen para ma-solve, ma-ano po ninyo. Kisa may 2 Gerson sa big O or big omega. Kay duha man na, big theta man na itong ipangita, di ba? Big theta. Okay? So, sige. Ako na lang ikuan sa ha. Karon, kato ka ganina, pulis to, kay naman to'y plus. Karon, minus na siya. So, lahi na siya og way kung may minus ang iyahang police number 2. Kato police number 1 joke. So, unsaan man siya? So, again, by definition of T of N, sige, ato lang i-prove. Kinsa to ni answer? Si Joe, si Mortera. So, sige, atong tanawon ha. Tanawa. So, 5N is 5N squared minus 3N is big theta of N. So, first, we will prove first your T of N equals to 5N squared minus 3N is big O of N squared. So, muna itong first kay theta man ang gipangita. So, therefore, isolve na to siya nga big omega for big O first. So, in this case, it would be, again, by definition, no? It would be 5N squared minus 3N is, unsa to? Big O is less than or equals to C of N squared. Tama? And then we divide it by both by N squared. Okay? Now, again, unsay mahitabuan ni? It would be 5 minus 3 over?
3 over N.
Correct. Less than or equals to C. Tawa. If your N of 0 is equals to 1, what is your C?
2, miss.
Ha?
2.
Okay.
2,
Ingon
miss.
ko ninyo, police number 2 ni siya minus. Diba? Dili siya plus. So, your C there is 5.
Sila.
Okay? Tanawa ha. Kaganina, police number 1 to. Kay ning naman the cross. I shall say, midex to siya karon police na jud siya joke. Kung dili ka mamatay ka, joke lang. Kung di, muagi ka na o sa paano. So, by the way, joke lang na siya. So, it would be, kanina siya. 5. Okay? Bali siya sa positive. Kare ka sa kuan. So, ato'y padayon daw kung big tanawa. So, therefore, sige, Isa. If your N will increase, if your N of 0 will increase, is the value of C will decrease? Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? Sige, ato sa tanawa, Dari. Tanawa, ha? Bali, atong ibalik og suwat kani. Para sa big omega ta, big omega. For big omega. Ako, dilan sa ako i-formal og suwat ha. Big omega. Pero i-formal na niyo suwat ka ng parehaan ba? Pareha gyud inani. Formal niyo siya suwat. So by definition, gihapon, anawa, it would be 5n squared minus 3n. Ano sa ganito? Greater than, no? Greater than or equals to c of n squared. No? So divide it by 2 na lang. Diretso. Ato lang sa ikuan. I-shortcut na way. So it would be, nahiman siyang 5 minus 3 over n. Pareha gapon is greater than or equals to c na siya. And then if your n is 0 is equals to 1, your c is equals to 2. Nakita ninyo ang difference? Nakita ninyo? Diri kung minus kani ang imuhang idiretso og answer for big O. For big omega, ina nimo siya i-perform. Which is reverse sa plus. Diba kaya kung plus na siya, imo man na i-add, tama? Then dire kung omega siya kay kung kani nga value. Pero karon kay minus man yung value, reverse siya. So kani siya for big O and this is i-perform nimo siya for big omega. Okay? So kung tan-aw nimo, tanawa ha, n squared. No? Therefore, P of n is big O of n squared. P of n is big omega of n squared. Therefore, P of n is big theta of n squared. Pangutana. Ngayon, kalainan ni plus o ni minus.
Kung sagol, miss.
Ano sa'y sagol? Depende. Depende sa kuan. Depende sa sagol kung taas sa kayang formula. Ang imong tanawon is the first kani. Kani nga first. Wala imong tanawon. Okay? And then it will follow the rest. Pero ang imong yung tanawon is the first. Kaya mo ni siya gitawag og most significant, di ba? Most significant value. Tama ba? Okay? Sige, question. So, big O siya of n squared and big omega siya of n squared pod. Therefore, big theta siya of n squared. Miss, kanus ata, when is the time that we cannot say it is big O? Unsa ganito first na kung kaan ka ganina? Kanino? N. Sunod. Kani? N squared. Okay? So, kano sa tama kaingon nga dili siya big O? Another example. Parihar akong given ha, pero ano ko siya. Your T of n is equals to 4n squared plus 3 is big O of n. So, n squared n. Okay? So, saan ganito siya sa T of n? It would be T of n is big O of n. Again, your T of n is by definition, no? So you will say 4n squared plus 3 is less than or equals to C of n. Divide it by n sa ubos. Okay? Then, after that, unsa magay mahitabo? Sige. Unsa daw mahitabo? Hi. Unsay mahitabo?
Divide by n, miss.
Oh, so unsa lagi mahitabo na? Unsa
4n
na?
plus 3 lesser than
4n
plus
plus
over n.
3 over n less than or equals to C. Diba? If your n sub 0 is equals to 1, what is your C? What is your C?
7, miss.
7? Oh, mao to, you have to take into the consideration ha. Naon sa to? Sa big O, gikan sa dako, magkagamay. Tama?
Miss.
Oh. What if mo increase? Very good, baka ni. What if mo increase si n sub 0 to 2? Di ba ka na 4 times 2 equals to 8? Sakto? So, if your n will increase, the value of your C will increase also for this example. So, it is also impossible to find the constant C for this T of n 4n squared plus 3. Nasabtan? Why? Again, if your n sub 0 is equals to 2, di ba 4 times 2 is 8 na? So, pila to'y value kung imo siya tanan kaganina, kung kana lang siya, mingon ka 7. No? Pero if you will increase the value of C, magkadako siya. Unsa man gayto kung magkadako siya? Big O, big omega?
Omega, miss.
Big Omega.
Oh, so, dili siya big O. Pero kani, pwede siya mahimong big omega. Kay ang value ni C, magkadako. Dili magka-gamay. So, as the value of n increases in this particular example, the value of C will also increase. So, it is impossible to find the value of your constant C for this example. No? So, you cannot satisfy the equation with the given, with this particular T of n. So, nakita ninyo ang diferensya nganong ako gining-emphasize, no? So, kung ari ka sa ari ka sa omega, mahimo siyang big omega kung ang kani siya mas dako kay diri. Correct? Or like sa example, pwede magpareha si pareha ani. Ano nga example? No, pwede siya magpareha na. So, it could be either big O or big O po siya. Or kana sad siya big omega po siya na inana ang mga kuan situation. Pero kung inani gayang mahitabo, no? Like kani atong gi-prove, this is not, therefore, your T of n here is not O of n nga given. So, in other words, this example is not big O. Pero, it is big omega. Pila may value first kung omega siya? Pila yung value? 4, tama? 4. Oh. Ya, kung ang value ni n magka-increase, mutaas siya. So, sakto siya. Big omega siya. Okay na? Other further, na-discuss ba na ako siya ang tanang mga big notation this morning? Na-clarify ba ninyo siya? Other question? Sige. Tagaan ta mo og set work. No? Para ma-test na to kung sige, kani siya. Try na to. Given. Okay. Isulat lang siya ha. Isara ka book niya. Ako rin yung ipa-pass ninyo until 12:30. No? Example. Your T of n is equals to 5n cubed over 3 plus 5n plus 3 is big theta of n squared. Okay? So, tanawa na siya ha. Parihaan na. Mingon din ka, mag-judge din ka. Oy, big ko ani siya, big. Tawag gani, big omega kay n squared. N cube niya, n squared. Oy, dili, i-test jud ni mo siya kung big omega bagod siya. Kung makakita ba ka sa C niya. Okay, remember, it is already a fraction. O, kana nga given ha. Ako na ibutang sa LMS, butangan ako nag-set work. So, may na lang makapuno-puno sa inyo ha. Kaya inyong set work, masayop man o makorek. Nana siya score. Klaro ra siya. Okay. So, sige. I'll give you time to work on it. Ako lang ipanguan sa inyo ha. Kay kanaganing inyong ako sa stop ang recording.